Hi, I'm Evelyn, and I'm just going to start off by sharing my screen and giving a brief introduction to mobiles and found objects. So here we go. So found object mobiles, that's our workshop today. And to start off, what is a mobile? A mobile is a moving sculpture. It's often different items or objects that are arranged and hung with strings or wire, and they're suspended in the air so they can move about. And a really important artist is Alexander Calder. He was a modern artist who sort of began using mobiles as an art form. And he really sort of popularized this and started it off. And I have an example here. He's a big inspiration to me and also an inspiration for this workshop. And then the second part is found objects. Found objects can be almost anything. It could be something from nature, it could be something made by humans, but basically anything that you find and repurpose. So it could be something from the trash or recycle. This can be a great way to sort of introduce sustainability into your art making. And today I'm going to be doing two demos. One is going to be a flower mobile using flowers that I've collected. And the second one is going to be a fish mobile. And these are going to be cut out of cardboard. And I've chosen fish for this, but you could really do any kind of shape or design that you would want. So I'm going to stop screen sharing now and start the demo. So first I'm going to talk a little bit about materials. Some things you might want would be string, any kind of twine or ribbon, depending on if you're using small objects that are lightweight or heavier objects, you might want a more sturdy string or rope. That's sort of up to your choice. And then you will also need sort of a base stick or a skewer. Any sort of like wooden object works well. Something small like this can be great, and that will be what your objects will hang from. And then anything you've collected, those are the found object part. And you'll also probably need like some scissors, and glue is optional to help secure your mobile as well. So first I'm going to start by showing you how to get your base stick, and you're going to cut a length of string for this. It will be twice as long as you want your mobile to hang. So I have cut this piece of string, and you're going to start by tying a knot at the very top. So I'm just going to loop this around. And once you have that, you will have a knot on one side and then kind of this open loop. And you're going to take your base stick and kind of hold it here. I'm holding all these things up to show, but you can also do this laying flat on a desk or table. So you're basically going to put the string over the stick and through the loop. And then when you lift it back up, it will hold your mobile. And this provides a way for you to hang the mobile up on something. So for this, I'm going to be putting it here. I have a lamp that I'm balancing it on just to demonstrate, but I think that it can be really easy to make these flat on a surface. But I have this here to demonstrate. So how do you balance a mobile? If I let go, this is very offset, as you can see. And so what you want to do is slide the center knot towards the side that's falling down. So you're just going to gently move it a little bit, and you keep doing this. This is the tricky part, is the balancing. It takes some patience, but once you get it about set, there we go, more or less balanced. And you can also secure as you go along with glue once you have different parts of your mobile set. So now I have my base string set up, and I'm going to get started with some of the objects. So for the flower mobile, I've collected these purple flowers. You can use really any kind of leaf or flower. It's best if it has enough of a stem that you can tie it on. And so I've just cut here some pieces of string. I like to have sort of a variety of lengths that the objects hang on the mobile. You could make yours all the same length, or it can vary up and down, totally up to you. So I'm just going to start by taking one of the flowers and one piece of string, and you sort of have to determine what's best depending on the object you've chosen. For these ones, I'm going to try and tie the string up near the top of the flower. If I put it at the end of the stem, it might slide off. So you might have to play around a bit with this. But this, I'm basically just going to tie a knot with one end of the string. and just sort of slide that up to the base of the flower. So there it is. So there's my first one. And then I'm going to do the second one, same thing, just tie a knot and secure it on the flower. And for this first one, I'm going to do 4 different flowers that I'm going to tie on. I think it can be helpful to have an even number so that you have the same amount on each side of your mobile, but it's totally up to you how many you want to do.
And Evelyn, I wanted to ask about how you pick your flowers. I mean, do you tend to use dried flowers or fresh, or does it matter?
I don't think it matters too much. These ones are fresh flowers. You could definitely use dried flowers as well. You can kind of use anything. Dried ones might be lighter weight, so that might be a little bit easier to balance potentially. But yeah, I think there's a lot of flexibility of what will work for this. You could do a combination. Yeah, so I'm just tying here my last flower on. And then now I will have them all collected. Okay, so I'm going to start and just take one of the flowers that I've tied, and with the loose end of the string, I'm going to tie that onto my mobile. And again, this might be easier done lying flat, but just so you all can see, all I'm doing is just looping it over the stick and tying a knot. And you can see that's going to off balance my mobile, but that will be fixed in a little bit. So now I'm going to tie one on the other side. I have a longer one now. So same thing, just over the top, looping it around, tying a knot. And depending on if you have heavier objects or lighter objects, you might want to do a double knot to secure it, just depending on what's going to be stable. Now I have another shorter one. I'm going to tie that one here a little closer to the center. So I'm doing mine every other, a longer and a shorter string to sort of have a pattern here. So now I have my last long flower I'm going to put on this side and tie that on. And there we go. So as you can see, it's very off balance right now. And there are a couple of different ways that you could balance the mobile. You could take the center string and slide it back and forth until it balances. But you can also sort of arrange the different elements. So if it's leaning really heavily towards one side, then you either want to slide these objects closer to the center or move some of the ones from the other side further away. And this is sort of where you really need to have patience and play around with it a lot. It's really hard to make a mobile bounce perfectly, but that's okay. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect. But usually you can go back and forth, move things around until you have both an arrangement that you like of the different elements, and you can find sort of some balance there. So there's one mobile balanced. And what you can do to secure it is you can use white glue. I found works really well. You can just put a drop at all of the knots that you've made once they're exactly where you want and leave it to dry. And then this will keep it super secure, keep it balanced. And yeah, if you use fresh flowers and you have them hanging, you could kind of dry them out and then you could even reuse them. You could trim the strings when you're done and tie on new flowers. So you can even sort of reuse and recycle a mobile that you've already made. So that is an example of the flower one.
I just had a thought. So
Yes.
because we have so many eucalyptus trees here, we're in Santa Barbara, obviously. And I mean, you know, neighboring areas have eucalyptus. I wonder if you could hang eucalyptus branches and put it in your bathroom, because I know that the steam from the shower of your eucalyptus kind of brings some of the essential oils out. So that might be kind of,
Yeah,
that could be cool.
that's a really good idea. Yeah, definitely. These could be just aesthetic, just pretty to look at, decoration, but they also could definitely be used for different purposes like that. I think that's a really good idea. Yeah, eucalyptus could be super great.
Where did you find your flowers?
I found these just outside around the campus where I'm living. So you could find flowers anywhere that you see them, or leaves from a bush or something, or dried ones as well. Yeah, and you can see it'll move if you spin them. And I've just made the mobiles I'm demonstrating today are just sort of a single base stick. But if you've practiced some of these, you could try using 2 sticks, different arrangements. So that's the flower one. And now I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate the second mobile. I'm going to take this down for now. And this one is the cardboard fish mobile. And so this one, I just have some basic cardboard. I've cut off the side of a box. You can use cardboard that is thicker or thinner. If it is thicker, you might need some more heavy duty scissors to cut through. You want to be kind of careful with that. You can also use just like cardstock, or even just plain printer paper will work as well. And there are totally different techniques and effects you can get from doing different things. So I've chosen this piece of cardboard, and for my fish, I'm going to start by drawing them on. I'm going to use a Sharpie. You can also use a pencil or a pen, whatever you wish. So I'm just going to quickly draw my fish shapes. And I think it's really easy if you draw them on first so that you know where you're going to cut. So I'm just going to draw them like that. And you can make as many or as few as you want. You could do fish, you could do stars, you could do all the same shape, or you could totally switch it up and make different ones. There's really a lot of possibilities, so it's totally up to you. And yeah, I think it's easiest if you draw them out so that you have a guide for when you're cutting and coloring. My cardboard is just sort of the brown on both sides, so you could color on both sides, or you could just do one. I'm just going to do one here. But after I've outlined all of my shapes, I'm going to take some markers and color them. I think that markers work really well on cardboard usually, but you could also use colored pencil. I don't think that like crayon would work quite as well, but you can definitely play around with different materials. If you were using like a cardstock or paper, that might be better for different materials to color with. So just like that, I'm just going to color in my shape. And you could color, I'm just coloring in the lines here. Depending on how you cut them out, you could go over the lines or stay in the lines. You could make them as detailed or complex as you want. So I colored in 2 fish here. I color in the 3rd and 4th. And this is a really fun part where you can use your creativity and create some different patterns, maybe any sort of different designs that you want. So I'm coloring in my last fish. And there we go. So now I have all of my different fish on my piece of cardboard. And what I find easiest is if you cut across or cut it so that each shape that you're doing is on a separate piece of cardboard. That'll make it really easy to cut out some of the more detailed shapes. So I'm going to take a pair of scissors and just cut these. They're all on a separate piece here. So now I have the fish shapes, and this is where there's kind of 2 options. You can go back in with the scissors and cut right around on your outline to sort of get just the fish shape, or you could leave it as a rectangle or cut it into another shape that is a little bit larger, which can be just easier if you have a more complicated shape. So I'll do half and half to demonstrate. So right now I'm just going to cut right around following the outline that I drew of the fish. And if you do it this way, then it can be easier to flip over the cardboard and color the other side in, and it'll line up pretty much exactly. Or if you do the other way, you could draw even something else on the other side. That totally works as well. So lots of options here. I'm just cutting the last part of this fish. So there we go. So that's what it could be if you cut more closely. Or I'm going to kind of cut an oval shape for the second one. I'm just going to cut off some of the corners here, and you get this larger shape, which can make it easier to punch a hole, which is going to be sort of our next step. And then on the back, you could draw the same thing, or you could draw something different. Up to you. So I'm going to cut out these last two fish. And the next step is going to be creating a hole for the string. And if you're using cardboard, it might be a little harder to make a hole. If you're using paper or cardstock, construction paper, it'll be a bit easier. I would recommend using a hole puncher. These make it super easy. And if you cut them out like this with lots of space around, then it's very easy to punch a hole at the top without going over any part of your image. So I'm going to go ahead and punch a hole, and there we go. Now there's a space for a entire string. So I'm going to repeat that for these different fish. If you're using a piece of paper or something thinner, you could potentially just use scissors to cut a small hole, or a little X for a string. That would definitely work as well. So lots of options depending on what sort of supplies you have. And then for this one, I'm just going to punch a hole at the top. So depending on your design, that could be better. And you want to make sure there's enough space so that the hole punch isn't too close to the edge, because it could tear potentially. So now I have my fish shapes, and they all have their hole punch. So I'm just going to take some more string, and this is basically now going to be the same process as before, where you would have a stick to start and balance that with sort of a double length string. And then once that's balanced, you can get all your individual elements, and you can tie a knot on the top and then hang them just the same. So I really like using the cardboard. I think it can create a fun texture when you color on it. Great way to sort of reuse something from a box or a container that you had. And I have here one that I completed before to show. So this is the Fishmobile that I made. And you can see I've colored on both sides, and these ones are a little bit more colorful too. So when you're done balancing and completing your mobile and putting all the different parts on, that's when I'd recommend gluing on the knots to keep it secured. What you can also do then, these all have the little tails, little strings sticking on. You could leave those if you want, or you can cut those off, particularly after you've glued each knot, so that it won't come undone. But that is the Fishmobile. And I think it's great because you can make any kind of shape or pattern you want, and lots of flexibility, creativity. And so basically, when you have your mobiles, I think that they're great decoration. You can put them up on a bulletin board. You could hang them on a doorknob or on like a dresser. You could put them really anywhere. You could tape them on a wall if you have like painter's tape. So they can hang flat, but they also can be sort of suspended in the air, which is what's really fun to see them move, change with the wind. You can spin them around, and yeah, get creative. You can use any sort of supplies, any sort of design, and that's a found object mobile.